Welcome to Smithereens. I'm your co-host Tom Bertles.
This is Jared.
And today we're talking about meth. We're on it.
Today we're bringing back Colin and Rob to talk about the We Are On Meth viral campaign from South Dakota.
We talk about that campaign. We talk about other viral campaigns. We talk about the implications of viral campaigns.
Do's and don'ts, how brands can succeed pushing the boundaries and pushing limits. Stay tuned.
This is a very serious campaign.
Well, I think forget about, so certainly this is a serious campaign, but I think the reason we're talking about it is that it's an interesting campaign, right? It's catching like news and attention.
Yeah. So I think, so when did this come out? Like earlier?
Well, let's give the listeners a little backstory of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So we are talking about the South Dakota, I guess now it's a viral campaign of their anti-meth messaging.
Yeah, like a public health
an
awareness campaign.
Yep.
So if you haven't seen it, one of the big tag from that is meth, period. We're on it. And it shows imagery of, one of the images I'm looking at is a group of high school football players. Another one is a picture of a older farmer. So yeah, I think it's gotten a lot of attention this week, rightfully so.
Right. Yeah. It only launched it launched Monday, right? So it's been out for as of this recording for 5 days, and there's been a ton of conversation about this, and every social media channel I've seen it shared. I mean, not only by people in our industry, but just people in general that have seen this, because obviously that's a pretty jarring tagline for anything, right?
Yeah, it's the first advertising or industry related topic that we've been reactive to, where we're we're recording a podcast as a result of that, because there's a lot of conversation in the office that everyone was excited about, in a I don't mean that necessarily in a positive or negative way, just it stirred up some emotions.
Yeah, and this is our world.
Sure.
And we had thoughts on it. So the emergency pod light went up, and here we are.
We keep that light right outside the door.
Yeah. Guys, the world needs us right now.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
The streets need us.
What are they? They must be clamoring for what we're going to say.
What does Mr. Smith think about this?
So one of the key details of this meth campaign that sort of was a focal feature of a lot of the initial news coverage cycle around it.
Yeah.
Was that so it's the South Dakota. There was a Minneapolis agency that was contracted for the work, and it was a campaign that, in order to produce it, cost roughly $500,000.
Right.
Which isn't actually a completely astronomical sum, but because the campaign is I'm on meth for $500,000, there was definitely an initial sort of vitriolic response in the face of that.
And the government money.
Yeah, sure.
Is
taxpayer money.
Part.
Yeah.
And South Dakota as a state only has a population of, just under 900,000 people. So
yeah. It's 60 cents per person to try to combat this.
But with all that being said, so Rob had kind of spoken to this point, but we've talked about it a lot this week, because not only of I hate to use the word jarring as a tagline, but it is. You stop in your tracks when you see it. But I guess, talking about that, it's doing its job, right? Not only are people in presumably South Dakota talking about this, but people all over the entire country are talking about this topic now because of this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So, as jarring as that statement is, and as the feedback to it, which we can kind of get into, that the feedback's been somewhat mixed, obviously, on this campaign. There's people who have said, I can't believe they're doing this. People, I've seen people tweeting about it, making fun of it in a way of just saying, oh my God, I can't believe someone would make this mistake, presumably thinking that it's a mistake. While the agency has kind of defended that, no, this is intentional. It's intentional that we use this verbiage and made it sound this way because we want to open the door for these conversations. That's the point of the campaign.
For sure. Again, back to that initial sort of outrage cycle at first, and I will call myself guilty that I sort of just read some headlines and didn't even necessarily engage with the information. And it was like, you won't believe what South Dakota spent $500,000 on to advertise, or like, you won't believe how they screwed it up. As though,
clickbait.
Yeah, exactly. As though I'm on meth was an accident.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just is not an accident. Like that's the campaign, is to be shocking and to like capture your attention like that. So,
Well, the truth of the matter is it's an epidemic, and people that are saying, I can't believe they did this, even if whether it was intent or not, it's creating headlines and it's shining light on an epidemic. And you've got companies like Johnson & Johnson who are fined, I'm reading it right here, $572 million for fueling the opioid crisis. It's like, that's a problem. We need to like not bury things like this. We need to bring them to light. And that's exactly what this agency did.
And epidemics, like even just the idea of an epidemic, sort of a public health crisis at scale like that, if you're truly going to use advertising to combat something, then you need to find a way to like create a similar type of scale to combat it.
Yeah,
so just
exactly.
A classic like, don't do meth, it's bad for you campaign.
Fighting fire with fire.
Yeah, fight. That's well put for sure.
Yeah. There's one, taking it from Twitter, one commenter was like, if the slogan had been, don't do meth, it's bad for you, no one would ever talk about this campaign.
Yep. Right, exactly.
And so it's like you have to find some way to cut through the noise, whether you agree with it really or not. As a consumer, it's like it's doing this job because it's getting people, thousands of miles away to kind of talk about what they're doing, and it makes you look at your own community and see, hey, if South Dakota has a crisis with this, like what's going on in their own backyard,
And I think, and truly exactly that, and like it's so easy to like put people who do meth in this bucket of like, ooh, people who do meth, that's messed up. Like I would like that would never touch my life, but like all these people, like the farmer, the grandma, whatever, like it's not that person right there doesn't do meth, but the idea is that like it touches everywhere. It's an illness, it's an epidemic, and it's like addiction is a problem, and like, and when and you need to figure that out.
Exactly. And I think, for that drug in particular, I talked about this with Caleb, and this is more of his point than my own, so I want to make sure he gets credit for it. But, when people talk about like the opioid problems, or like opiate problems, or heroin, or any of those things, it's done with this like kind of somber, like that is a huge issue, and that's like, you can point to people and like you feel bad for it. But meth is traditionally like, it's used as a joke. You know what I mean? Like people.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like it's treated with not any level of like people actually caring about it. You know what I mean?
Somebody's doing something like out of their mind. It's like, oh, that dude's on meth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So to kind of reframe that whole conversation and be like, treat these.
Yes.
I mean, treat these things.
Sorry, I was going to get it out.
Treat these things with the respect that they actually deserve. I mean, these people have the same problems as any other addict does. It's a different drug, it's a different vessel. But
Sure.
like, you should be able to have that conversation and respect that conversation needs to happen.
Yeah, and why is this one more important than this one? It's like somebody has a disease. It's like, well, it's not cancer. It doesn't make it not a disease. It makes it something really important. And if you're affected by it, then you want to implement some sort of change or like work towards a solution. In that case, it might be a cure or whatever. But this is how we can manage this particular crisis.
Yeah, I think, Tom, you said something super interesting there to me. Like, treat it with the respect it deserves. And so, kind of what we're talking about here, by creating a campaign to develop awareness, and you hope awareness turns into action and all this stuff.
Sure.
So by treating with the respect it deserves, you're developing a campaign that gets that attention.
Yeah.
And I think that this I'm on meth, on the surface of it, there was some, again, initial reaction where it's like, that's so irreverent, that's not respectful to meth. It's like, I'm on meth, you're making light of it.
Right.
But by capturing attention to actually get some momentum to solve the problem, that's the respect the problem deserves.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Like, so it's this sort of weird inversion, like you're being respectful by being irreverent. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely.
So looking at this from a sorry to play host here, but looking at this from an advertising standpoint, it sounds like we're all in agreement on the campaign messaging and it being shocking and fire with fire. And, you know, you're not going to be able to, because that agency could probably say to them, and I'm involved in, you know, pretty much every pitch here within our agency, which is, if I'm going into this, I'm saying, would you want to roll this out? We'll just take your money, roll this out and say, hey, let's stop this. Let's do something about it. Yeah. Or
don't do meth. It's bad for you.
Right. Yeah. Or we can really create change. If you really care about this and you're going to put your money into this and you're going to pay us for this, let's do this the right way. And this isn't necessarily, I can't speak for that agency. It isn't necessarily like a way to get our name in the headlines, but it's a way to get your name, your message in the headlines. And we can do that. That's what we do.
And yeah, I mean, you know, not obviously we haven't dealt with something of this magnitude, you know what I mean? Or societal importance as an agency, but like, but yeah, kind of walking, we've all been in a room where a client wants X, right? And they say that they want X. So if we use this client, like the State Department of South Dakota, like walking in there and be like, we need to raise awareness for this. And like giving them the 2-option thing of just like, well, yeah, all right, so we could do this. But like what we really think you need to do this is why. It's cool to see, I think maybe from our example or our standpoint, like a client actually doing the thing that you're just like, this is risky. Like this is the backlash you're going to get. We'll set you up for like, this is how this is going to go. Mm-hmm. But if you really want to do this the right way, this is what you have to do.
Well, I mean, just looking at it from a different point of view, it's like, you know, this campaign wasn't cheap. You know, I think it's almost half a million, $500,000,
$450,000.
Yeah, so it's like there was a lot of research done before, like they pitched this line. You know, so like this agency had to go out. It's like they listened to the governor. We have a meth problem. We have a problem with, you know, substance abuse. They had to go out and hear those stories from real people. You know, it's like hearing people who might have had addiction in the past, losing a family member to addiction, just seeing like the result of, you know, this narcotic being in their community. They had to sit there and like get those stories and hear that to be able to be like, we're not going to do things the way like people think we're going to do it by just saying like meth is bad, don't do it. Right. No, we need to kind of create and evoke some type of an emotional response to cut through all that noise. So it's all that research in the front end to be able to go back to, you know, the stakeholders and really be like, no, this is the path. You're going to see some resistance or, you know, obviously negative comments, but like it's going to cut through, you know, have that confidence.
Yeah. And what I have on my screen right here is it's from the LA Times, and it says, experts in substance abuse say the most important story is being missed. Is the meth story, maybe in this particular case, the way I'm contextualizing it, if that story is being missed, it's not anymore.
Yeah, right. Right, exactly. And now
it's real story.
Yeah, I mean now.
Oh, I don't understand what that meant. Like
is that before this campaign launched? Or,
no, it's a result of the campaign.
But the most important story is being missed. Like, what is like? It's
experts in substance abuse are saying that the story of meth and it's the impact of this epidemic is being missed.
Oh, okay. So not the
story. The story of meth is the most important story that's being missed.
Is the story that's being missed. So now,
so like the opioid epidemic is different than the meth epidemic, and so the opioid epidemic is like overshadowing meth. Is that?
I don't know. It doesn't say that in particular. I think they're just saying the story of meth and it being an epidemic isn't being missed.
Okay.
Yeah.
My point is now it's a story.
And
that's exactly what this campaign was trying to do.
And the widespreadness of it, like you think of meth as this sort of thing that effed up people do, and but like maybe you do it once, and then you're doing meth, and that's a problem, right? Like,
right. Yeah.
It can be addictive in that way. Like, a point somewhat tangential to this. Like, I think so this idea of we'll take your money and we'll put out the don't do meth, it's bad campaign. Like we won't do that, but like anybody could do that. I'm saying,
Yeah,
But
right.
it does take, I think that as part of this story, like all of a sudden think of like the state of South Dakota as like a dream client.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. The bravery as a client to say like, for strategically for an agency to say like, we need to cut through the noise. We need to like do something different. Here are some ideas. Like, I would bet every dollar I'll make for the rest of my life that like there were other ideas on the board besides I'm on meth.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So like you have to present several things.
And who
like,
knows how long that pitch was and how many ups and downs. And honestly, I mean, presumably with that much money spent on this, you know, we're only looking presumably at the start of a campaign.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
It only launched on Monday, so I think there's something to be said to see how this evolves over time too, and what other parts kind of get tacked onto it as it evolves.
Yeah, and like this right now, it's an awareness campaign, and how that trickles down into conversions, which is something that we in like more of our day to day we think about through this idea of awareness and conversions. But so and even just thinking through this project and like so the agency, who are they talking to? Who is their team? At some point, the fucking governor of South Dakota had to sign off on this. Like straight up the governor of the state. And she's got a quote, which is cool, by the way, too. The mission of the campaign is to raise awareness, to get people talking about how they can be a part of the solution and not just the problem. It is working. So like that was a client that had bravery, that continues to recognize the key performance indicator being awareness, and like it is impossible to deny the attention that you're getting, and attention is a proxy for awareness, and like what actually happens with that to be determined. Because I will say that even for myself, it has, and I'm not in South Dakota, so I'm not necessarily the target audience, but like I'm a human being in America where meth is a problem probably everywhere, and I think I understand that better than I did before, and I think I hadn't really thought of it. And now, like, because of this, I'm like, oh, shit, that's a thing. Like,
I think what's interesting is take a line from you from a previous podcast I just remembered, sparked my thinking. We were talking about bad ads, and I said a bad ad is one that doesn't work, and you said it's one that actively offends. Right. And so a great ad is one that works, right?
Yeah.
And this is like actively offending in a positive way, if that makes sense.
I think it's actively provoking.
It's intentionally.
that's a better way.
Intentionally provoking action.
Sure, and interest
and it's working, which is like crazy.
Sure.
It's like both ends of the spectrum. But like if you could take a bad thing and make it a great thing, that's exactly what this is.
Sure,
right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, from like an advertising perspective, like and I don't have the name of the agency in front of me, and I probably should.
Something.
Yeah, but kudos, 10 out of 10. Like true, like you nailed it.
Absolutely.
Like you guys did your job completely, and like to your point, Rob, I have to think that they don't start this project with like, this is going to get us a bunch of press. The goal is to get your client a bunch of press, and if you succeed at that goal, you're probably going to get yourself a bunch of press too. Like I don't remember their name though, so
put out good work. Yeah. Good work finds you. Like we tried to put good work out in the world, and like hope it comes back to us.
Sure.
Because
absolutely.
Like that's a little bit of us in there or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
So
do you think that like creating lines and creating campaigns where you're kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit, do you think that's like an agency decision from jump? Like our agency and our mission is always going to find a way to kind of push the boundaries. Do you think it's decided by each agency? Like there's some agencies who just want to play safe and like do things that have maybe some iteration of what's been done before, and some agencies look to kind of offend or push, I would say.
I mean, I think so when you go to an agency, like if you work with us, you work with anyone, like, and you're going to have different goals, but for like a campaign, one major thing you really want to see is creativity. And I think that there's an undeniable correlation between creativity and fearlessness. Like if you are truly going to be creative, you have to be willing to pursue ideas to ends that like might be uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
a good point.
and see what fruit is born from that. And I think this is a great example of that. So I would imagine the ethos of that agency is probably quite creative.
Yeah, and you also just need to be responsible So like when they rolled this out, like they had to have in their back pocket, I know they posted things on Instagram or something like that defending them being a part of this campaign and why. Like they knew that. They knew what they were doing, and they knew that they have a very sound reasoning for why they were doing it. They didn't just like make that up after the fact.
Yeah.
Like it was all thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I guess to kind of pivot here to talking about when maybe this doesn't work so much. So I don't know how much you guys were able to look into this. I passed along a few articles for us to kind of look at.
Fucking awesome.
So to kind of stay in this realm of, there's a lot of ads I'm sure that we've all seen, and anyone who's listening have heard or seen that are bad ads, right? Just like too cheesy, too dumb, just a bad advertisement, right? But the one that I think is the most interesting that's kind of, related to this only by that it was trying to be done as like a societal good, we'll say, is the Unhate campaign. Are you guys aware of this at all?
Of
the Unhate campaign?
Let's give context to the listener, because I know it all for sure, but
you know the Benetton Group. I'm just reading it.
Yeah. So the Unhate campaign seemingly provided, I don't have a ton of context here, but it essentially was done in a way of trying to kind of unite people and bring opposites together, we'll say, right? So people from different countries, people of different religions, people of different affiliations in life, kind of trying to unify them and bring them together. Mm-hmm. How the agency, I believe Bennington Group, I don't know if that's the agency or the people who paid for the advertisement, but
yeah.
But anyway, decided to do this was Photoshop pictures of various world leaders kissing each other.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, kissing is near and dear to Mr. Smith's heart, for sure. So,
and Colin's heart in particular. So did not get as warm of a welcome or warm response. Actually was vehemently, the posters that were placed were torn down. World leaders who were photoshopped and obviously did not agree to this demanded that they be taken down because
it's a big problem.
Because there's like one of Obama. I don't know who Obama's kissing, but Obama's kissing somebody. Obama's kissing a few people actually. And
Pope Benedict is kissing someone.
Yeah, so a lot of things that just
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But so like as a thought exercise,
sure.
Is I'm on Meth a better campaign than No Hate with kissing?
I think.
What do you mean?
So right now people like it, and so it did well by the measure of it. And this people didn't like it, and it caused a problem. But as from a point of creation and fearlessly following an idea to an endpoint to like try to create a stir, I think they're both equally inventive.
Agreed, but back to my point, being responsible versus being irresponsible. Like,
sure, yeah.
If you can be great at selling, pitching ideas, and the idea can be creative, but how is that going?
I definitely won't knock them for creativity.
Yeah, how's that going to move the needle for your client and affect positive change? In this particular case, I mean, I can't speak to how effective it was. I'm not sure even the article that you had sent, like if they even say that, but it's shocking.
And if it didn't achieve the objective of the campaign to like, quite frankly, move the needle in a very capitalistic sort of way, then it failed, and it's not as good of a campaign, probably, right? Like, it's,
right. I mean, yeah, I think obviously there's so many metrics that you can kind of, I guess, evaluate these by, right? And then there's metrics that you can't. Creativity and like, you know what I mean? Like whatever like you said, the inventiveness of a campaign like is definitely there. The creativity is definitely there. I can't knock it for that. However, things like the Vatican, condemning all of the posters, or like all these world leaders saying like, please do not hang these.
But I actually think that's in terms of like being provocative, like it missed, and like it didn't. win. But like if we put that out, if as an agency, like kind of what you're talking about, like if our agency put that out,
Yeah.
I would be proud of it. And then like I wouldn't necessarily take the end result of whether or not I'm proud of what we put out. I'm prouder if it does its job and hits,
Sure.
but like sometimes you take a chance. Like,
Yeah.
I'm on meth is a chance taken that seems to be hitting right now.
Yeah, and
Like,
I should kind of like clarify with all this, like, you know, these are controversial ads. I can't say one way or the other that they weren't successful. This ad apparently did win the Cannes Ad Festival Award, the Unhate one, so it was successful in terms of having
in
that
terms of
level
creativity, for sure.
But you know, to bring up other controversial ads that maybe in light of this seem iffy.
Sure.
Right. I mean,
But I guess like what I think subject matter has to play a part in what we think is controversial or not. Like, you know, like I'm on meth is controversial just because of like it affects real people, you know, and like real people are struggling from addiction and substance abuse. So
sure.
I think that like putting that spin on it rubbed people the wrong way. But everyone hopefully is in agreement that it is a huge problem that needs to be kind of combated. Now, when I look at like even when I see ads or articles or commercials, whatever the media is, when like it just overly like sexy, like racy and sexy, I just think it's like trying to like push for, you know, it's like pushing something with like no satisfaction or gratification. I feel
it's
like
just because,
right,
Yeah.
right. So like when I think that like, you know, even with this no hate ad, I think it could have been done better by finding at least, you know, people who wanted to be openly in part of that ad campaign. Like if they found like, you know, two celebrities or two figures who wanted to be a part of that and really kind of build that campaign around I guess models who wanted to participate, I think it would have went over better, in my opinion, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. So the way we look at this, like, was the campaign successful versus is it creative, or is it both of those things?
Sure.
And like I think like this Bloomingdale's one on the Mashable link that you sent.
Yeah.
Like condoning date rape, spike your best friend's eggnog when they're not looking. It's like this guy leering at a girl.
Yeah.
It's just that's not even creative.
Yeah, it's not.
Like
It's also
it's like that, it's like that's not that clever.
Yeah.
At all. It's actively offensive.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's so many. I mean, if you look up any list for things that are controversial or textbook bad, the Pepsi ad from a few years ago with who's it, Kendall Jenner, that kind of like belittles the the Black Lives Matter movement, pretty much. Like that's like and you know, and not to and once again to a point that Caleb had made previously, not to compare those things. There's a campaign that is fighting meth in South Dakota. It's not on the same playing level as like Pepsi. You know what I mean? One is significantly more important to the world than the other one is, but still talking about how, you know,
people do love their Pepsi.
People do love their Pepsi. Yes.
Not as much as they love their Coke.
I think Western New York is one of the big. I think Pepsi over Coke in Western New York. I heard.
That's true.
What?
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable. At least it used to be that way. And like, and Coke is like, you know, every community. There's only like a few pockets where like Pepsi wins out.
Well, Coke is in every community, so is meth.
Yeah,
it's kind of a joke, but kind of salient here, I think. I'm
just not sure if I should laugh.
Gabby,
at
I got about
fair.
Gabby, I got like 10 edit points.
So that one I actually feel maybe isn't an edit. I think that's a good point.
So I have a question. Another one. By DJ Khaled.
11.
That's good. Leave that in there. I guess my question is, what can a company do, or what can an agency do to ensure that if they are trying to push the boundaries on whatever message they're trying to get out there, what can they do to protect themselves when that goes live?
Be prepared for the possibility that it might not hit. I think if you're really going to take a shot, if you're really going to like sign off on something that like has the potential for virality because it rides that edge, it might go bad on you.
Yeah.
And that's a risk you take. Like,
I'd have to imagine like all stakeholders have to know that. And I think too, it's good that we have a fairly diverse group of people here, because I feel like that helps us explore every angle of every word that we use in a thing that we give to a client. You know what I mean? Like we think it through. We think it through with people that don't even write like at Mr. Smith, like copywriting. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
True.
And I think that that's a good thing and a good way that we try to avoid some of these things that are just like that, like the articles that I'm looking at of like Nivea ran an ad that said white is purity, which is like just like how did that get through so many levels of like management?
Yeah, and that kind of goes to my
how much
point.
were they spending on that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like no one stopped and thought like, hey, this could be taken the worst possible way.
What if we paired white is purity with black is bad? Like make it even
And I guess like that's my point, is like my idea is that if you're going to do any kind of like ad campaigns where just off the top of my head is like has to deal with like religion, sex, race, anything like that, you should have
the biggies.
You should have like a representative from that demographic, like whether it be through like testing, whether it be in the room like concepting. Like it shouldn't be, for example, it shouldn't be like 6 old white guys talking about like race relations, how like we can overcome that, because I feel like you're missing the topic
missing the
there.
boat.
Like you need to go out there and do the research, and and companies have to know that they have to put some of that budget aside for that preliminary testing. Like
to me, it's almost amazing that this day and age, anything can be rolled out, especially with these giant budgets that we're seeing in like some of these bad, like Pepsi, right? Like how could you miss that bad when strategy is being preached by pretty much every agency, and testing and user experience, user centered, all this like these buzzwords just continue, and everyone's billing for strategy up front before you enter any engagement and put pen to paper on anything, and to make sure it's completely vetted so that when you roll this out, you're not wondering if it's going to resonate.
Yeah.
It's going to work. It's been tested. And it's not a guarantee that it's going to work this well, but we know the needle will move in the right direction.
right.
I mean, you might have. I think creativity is a game of like gut reactions. What if instead of saying meth is bad, don't do it, we did an I'm on meth? That's an idea, right? It's a gut reaction. Maybe that will cut through.
Right.
The due diligence of an agency, of someone who's going to roll this thing out as a campaign at scale, is research. It is market testing. It is all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
That takes it out of the realm of gut reaction. So that even if it does fail, to your point, you can at least say like, look, there was data here that like said we had a chance to really make a difference.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And it just didn't work.
You weren't just making a blind decision to do something. You know what I mean? And I would, once again, speaking back to like what we do here, I think any route that we're looking to take with a client, we think of all the potential like we really try to think through how this is going to look, not just immediately, but down the line, and try to phase things out. Think of how those are going to be what the goal is there, how it can be perceived, how it can be perceived by a variety of different people, and really try to think through all those possibilities. I mean, you can't plan for everything, but you should try.
Any possible outcome, consider it. Doesn't mean you can avoid every single one.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
The Under Armour one is interesting. Like the Iwo Jima thing with the basketball hoop. Like that's one that it's creative. Like it's a little bit like it's intentionally derivative, obviously, but like the idea is there, but there's a whole country that is being. I mean, maybe potentially even two that are. Regardless, it's just there's a lot there. I don't know. I don't have every angle of it figured out. I'm like kind of looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's kind of a cool idea. And then I'm like, oh, wait, yeah, that is offensive.
It's
like,
a cool design.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think, yeah,
it's a little risky.
it's risky.
I don't really want to talk on it because I don't know enough about it or have pride one way or the other.
Right.
In this, so like I don't have I do understand how that can be offensive though.
Well, I do think it's a little harder for companies who sell products to kind of like to not come off offensive when they try to do something like this. Like in my opinion, it's easier to push a little bit if you're doing it behind like a cause. Like whether you're, whether
because
it be obesity, whether it be like some of that. But like if Under Armour did something where they, they did something with image or they did something with saying, they're going to get a lot more shit because they're just, in people's mind, they're just trying to sell a product,
Pushing the needle to sell a product versus pushing the needle to make a difference.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a super, super good point.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, like, you look at, even the Gucci stuff and then, things that happened this year, in the past, even with, like, H&M, these type of things, they're trying to do things H&M to, like, separate themselves, but they get caught because, they do something stupid, they pull it, but people just like, they're just trying to sell a product or trying to do something. It just makes it so much harder to cut through that noise.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
The H&M one was unbelievable.
Yeah, you can't do that.
What was H&M one?
I mean, the one was like the black child and the monkey thing, and then Gucci had like the black face sweater thing this year.
I do remember that.
Like a turtleneck that like comes up over your mouth with like sort of traditional minstrel,
And then there's a couple other ones over the years. It's just like why.
Wait, remember the one
if you have a minority in a room, I mean, you're gonna a lot of these things won't get not fam.
I appreciate you. I don't really consider myself a minority, but
wait,
12 cuts.
That was a good one. I like that. We shared this in the general channel. I think at least you and I definitely talked about it. But there's a fashion brand. It's like a runway-based brand, and they're streetwear. And I remember they did the whole line of like all the schools that had school shootings, and they took school shirts and like or whatever, like
they put like
t-shirts,
and
they made them like distressed, but they were distressed with like bullet holes and stuff, and it's unbelievable. Honestly, not that different than the original topic of this discussion, which is like shocking.
Right.
Offensive, but like, what are we going to do about it?
Right. Yeah.
That seems a little bit. I don't know what they're.
That was hard. That was hard for me to like really get behind.
It was hard.
Yeah, it was hard. Yeah.
But like, I don't know if they had intention to like affect change governmentally or whatever. I mean, I'm sure they wanted it to them all to get a whiff of it, and like, what are we going to do about this? But at the same time, they're also. But those t-shirts probably cost $300.
Right.
Just like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To Jarrett's point, like when selling products come involved and a company wants to look like they care, I think everybody, I don't know, you're remotely savvy enough to be like, all right, do you actually care? Or are you just trying to like.
Is it a money grab?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it convenient?
Yeah.
It's tough. I mean, you see a lot of, companies jumping on trends and topics and and waves just to kind of be considered to buy their product or X service, and it's sometimes it's it's sick, it's like trash, but I mean that that's capitalism. You try to like just get up by any way that you can, I guess.
That's true.
Sometimes you're gonna offend somebody.
That is true.
Sometimes you don't.
Yeah. And that's
sometimes you don't.
So I like ultimately, just kind of a moment in time here. Just one sort of point that is near and dear to my heart with all of this is in the industry that we're in. Like a lot of industries, I suppose. I think there's some belief, at scale that like the best work, the only work that matters, the work that is captivating and innovative and all that comes out of, New York, LA, London, Chicago, like,
Major cities.
major cities. And like, but so to me, it's cool as hell that like a Minneapolis shop is the one that drove this bus. And
Right.
and if I was South Dakota, I'd be like, hell yes, I'm getting some shine here. Like,
Yeah.
how often do you go about in your life and you have a thought about South Dakota?
I don't know. When I start naming the states, which I do daily, I start with South Dakota to go down the list.
Rob actually, as soon as we all come in the office, he asks all of us to name all the states.
Go. I'll time you.
But
And if we can't, he docks our pay for the day.
it's tough stuff.
Wait,
around here for
continental
sure.
or
For anybody looking to work at Mr. Smith, if you like,
get your states right.
get your states right. Yeah, for sure.
You know where to start.
Can anybody name the capital of South Dakota?
No.
Bismarck.
Wow. Great.
Bismarcky.
Please, nobody fact check that. I think I'm right, but I'm not 100%. So
Well, as the resident South Dakota fan,
that is true.
I would know.
But good work can happen on any campaign, can happen anywhere. Like it's all about client and agency aligning on goals and being willing to take chances together, and then some amount of alchemy and just things breaking the right way for you. So
That's true.
This is a cool example.
And I
And
think,
they have a city called Buffalo, in South Dakota.
oh,
Bismarck's not the capital. Pierre.
Oh, of course. I definitely knew that.
Pierre, South Dakota.
Duh.
Is that where the Buffalo roam, is South Dakota?
Is Bismarck in South Dakota?
Is it? Man, I really hope
Just the best. If you're not watching the video of this, the confidence on Colin's face as he asks the room, "Does anyone know what the capital of South Dakota is?"
It's in North
It's
Dakota.
It's in North Dakota. Is it the capital of North Dakota?
It's
Okay.
there you go.
Come on, that's close.
classic
Yeah.
wrong Dakota.
I'll give you that. I get them confused
classic
all the time.
case.
All right. I think we can end it on South Dakota, North Dakota trivia. Thank you guys for talking about this
Next week,
with us.
it's North Korea, South Korea trivia.
Oh, all right.
No, thank you.
No, it will not. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening to the episode. We really hope you enjoy it, and stick around and come back for the next one.
Yeah, really, really appreciate everyone kind of giving us their time on this platform. Please stay up to date with us. Follow us on Instagram at Mr. Smith Agency. Check out all of our work there. Also, visit our website, mrsmith.agency.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.